Hello, and welcome to CU at USC. I'm your host, Desi Gallegos, and this evening, in honor of Parents Weekend, we're joined by Misha Burich, a high-technology executive and the father of Annalise Burich, who is the executive producer here at CU at USC. That's all coming up in just a few short moments here on CU at USC. Join us. And we're back with Misha Burich, High Technology Executive. Misha, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
So let's start at the very beginning. You've had an incredible career, starting in Serbia and then moving to Silicon Valley, and I'm so excited to be able to talk all about it. Let's start with your upbringing. Where were you born?
I was born in Belgrade, then Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was a collection of 6 republics. Since then, they separated into separate states. I was born in Belgrade, and very early I discovered I enjoyed building things, and that led to actually me getting electrical engineering degree at university in Belgrade. And very soon I knew I was going to come to the United States. I saw the landing on the moon, and that was to me a sign that that was a place to be. And I eventually came to the United States to graduate school, and I got a master's and PhD in electrical engineering at University of Minnesota in Minneapolis. And then I stayed in this country. Just like many students today here at USC, they come from different countries, they earn their degrees, and they stay in the United States.
Now, were your parents supportive of your desire to make things and to go to college in Yugoslavia?
Yeah, so it was absolutely for college, but then once I decided to go to the United States on my own, leave the family and with 2 suitcases and say goodbye, that was a tough decision for me and for my parents. But again, they supported my career goals.
Okay. And what was the transition to America like? Did you speak English when you...
Yes, so like most countries these days, you start learning English in grade school and throughout high school and college. So I had to actually pass some tests before I came to the United States. Before I came, I was admitted to a graduate school. So I was very fluent in English, even though when you come to the United States in those days, you still have to pick up some colloquial language, and I was watching Johnny Carson's show as my way to kind of get introduced into slang and kind of just everyday language. But for science and engineering, I was very ready.
And when did you start to feel that America was the place you wanted to stay for the rest of your life?
It was very early. I really felt being exposed to the high technology, being exposed to ability to investigate new things and work as much as I wanted to work. I knew very quickly that was going to be where I was going to stay. However, I still had to finish my master's and PhD degrees, and then after that decision, I decided to go to Bell Labs Research in Murray Hill, New Jersey, which was a very prestigious research company at that point. So I was really enjoying that decision to stay in this country at that point. And I became a United States citizen very quickly after that.
I'm so fascinated by the decision to pack up, leave your hometown, leave everything that's familiar, your friends, your family, and everything like that, and move to a whole new country, basically in pursuit of a dream, in pursuit of the American dream in a way. What were some of your biggest fears coming to America and some of the biggest struggles at the beginning? Yeah,
and that is very important, something that I felt very strongly about throughout my career, not only then but later on, taking some risks. In order to really achieve your goals, many times you have to cross some bridges which seem to be hard to cross, but you have to kind of just jump into it and do it, take some risks, and then really do the best you can after making a decision. And so, there's always fear of unknown, but I made many decisions later in my life at various points in my career when I took some other risks. But I was always going back to my original decision to leave my home and my family as being a sign that actually it is doable to take some risks and achieve your goals.
So let's talk about your time while in America. You said you went to the University of Minnesota? Okay, cool. And then what was your college experience like? What was it like coming from a different country and trying to assimilate in this new place?
Oh, it was great. I was lucky to get a position at a computer laboratory as a research assistant, and that was really what paid my bills and my tuition. And I was able to get exposed to many projects that were very interesting. I had very entrepreneurial professor who was my thesis advisor at the time. And that exposure to projects, plus also doing coursework, which was also challenging, was really very rewarding. And then by the time actually I finished and got my master's and PhD, I already had experience in running projects and participating in 20, 30-person projects that were funded by different agencies.
Right.
So that really prepared me to, when I went to Bell Labs Research, actually to hit the ground running and really be able to engage in new challenges.
And what specifically were you working on at Bell Labs?
Yeah, so at Bell Labs, I was working on a number of projects. Bell Labs in those days was a fascinating place. In fact, every research person was asked to do things that are never done before and explore different things. And I was pursuing things in the digital signal processing, eventually leading to some things that are very common today, like what happens in your iPhone actually was digital signal processing and speech processing. I was working on, eventually, my main piece of work was in actually design automation for integrated circuits.
Okay.
Because I was interested in developing computer architectures that require chip design, VLSI design. And so I got into a way of designing chips very productively by developing specialized software to actually help people design chips. And that eventually led to my career decision to leave Bell Labs and start a company, my first startup company, in a field called design automation for integrated circuits. And if you look at the history of integrated circuits, that was very critical technology that enabled people to build more and more complex chips. And that was the rest of my career actually was in that whole space of software and chip development, which is fundamental in electronics, which is then fundamental for communications and TV studio equipment and everything else.
So for those who don't know, let's talk about what a chip actually is, because I'm sure there are many people in the audience.
Yeah.
And certainly before this, I had no idea. So let's chat about that.
Yeah. So a chip is a collection of building blocks that are called transistors.
Okay.
That's a fundamental switching element, and they're interconnected on a chip. So the whole process of developing integrated circuit that has many millions and actually now billions of transistors on a chip, and how they get interconnected, that's a whole field of semiconductor industry that has grown to about 350 billion this year. And famous companies like Intel is very famous, Qualcomm. My last company that I just retired from was called Altera Corporation, and we're developing specialized chips. When I started my career in Bell Labs, the most complex chip had 17,000 transistors on a single chip.
Wow.
When I left Altera, my teams were developing chips with 5 billion plus transistors on a chip. So that shows you the progress in the manufacturing of more and more complex connectivity of many, many transistors on a single chip, which eventually makes all the electronics work. Microprocessors, equipment for communications, and everything else.
So this is really essential technology to all the stuff we're using today.
Yes.
The internet and all this kind of stuff.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. That's a 300 billion industry fueling multiple trillion industries that are built on top of that. And software and communications and everything else.
And it sounds like you were there pretty much near the beginning, or near the inception of all this kind of stuff.
I was very lucky to be part of that whole process. I'm so pleased and proud now when I look at so many things we use in everyday life that I can say, I contributed in some small way, contributed to this thing actually functioning and being where it is. And so it's very rewarding.
Now, as an engineer, did you see back then the potential of this and how what it might turn into, or was it just about making it better as it stands right now, focusing on the present or more on the future?
Yeah, so I did see the vision, but even in those days, I could not even imagine how complex it will get.
Right.
So really, you discover the future 5 years at a time. You cannot see 20 years ahead, but you can see 5 years ahead. And then you see next 5 years, and that's how it leads to progress. I'm equally excited about the future of technology. I just retired, but I'm still very fascinated about what will happen in the next decade, next couple of decades. So engineers today here at USC, at Derby School of Engineering, many other engineers, United States and the rest of the world, are working on some new innovations that will make the future possible. And that's very rewarding as well, not only the past, but also the future.
And while we're on the topic of the future, what do you foresee, or what are some of your hopes and some of your predictions for the future of technology?
Yeah, so it's fascinating. It's really a combination of semiconductors or chips, combination of software, combination of communications, wireless communications, connectivity, which leads to brand new, very small wearable electronics, but then that electronics that we wear today, in the future has to be connected through infrastructure, through wireless networks, communication networks, computer servers and cloud. All of this is happening as we speak. And that is just the sky's the limit, what is possible with all this.
Wonderful. So in a move that sort of paralleled your move from Serbia, at the time Yugoslavia, you left Bell Labs to start your own startup company. What brought about that decision, and what was it like at the beginning with this new company?
Well, that was another risk I took, kind of similar. At that time when I was making a decision, people just didn't leave Bell Labs. It was a place to be. It was the best research institution in the world, and people just didn't leave Bell Labs. So me leaving was a big decision, but I wanted to leave because I had some ideas about some technology that can be turned into products in a startup company. So growing from 5 of us who left Bell Labs together to startup company to actually build industry that was not possible in Bell Labs. That's another thing I learned, that sometimes in the older company you cannot really find way to promote new ideas easily. It's very hard to get the company to move in a certain direction, and that's why people leave companies to do startups. And as you know, there are many startups that were starting with a couple of people. They became big companies, but then even when they become big companies, sometimes they become stodgy and sluggish, and then people leave again to do some new startups. Right. So that was a big decision, and so I had some technology that was design automation of chips. That basically was a company I built with 4 of us. We grew it to about 500 people over the next 4 years, and eventually merged into a larger company.
So was it terrifying at first to do this? Was it like and when did you start to feel that this new company was potentially successful?
Yeah, it was terrifying all the way, and it's really never easy because what happens, you have ideas about the product, but then you build a first version of product, then you need a customer,
right?
And that's a terrifying moment. Who is going to use this thing? And then you meet customers, and customers give you feedback. So this was a big lesson I learned. It is not only technology, but also customers that you have to interact with, and they give you feedback. Just like in your case, your customers are viewers of this show,
right.
So you were terrified, about the results of this show. I was terrified all along about new products, but working with customers and having customer intimacy and a feedback from them was very, very important to grow the company, because at the end of the day, they pay your bills. They are basically buying the product to pay the employees that you have, and then use your technology.
And through a mix of luck and talent, and I'm sure all this kind of stuff, this first company was a success, am I right?
Yeah, we grew to 500-person company. At that point, we decided to merge into a larger company to be able to move more rapidly.
So from 4 to 500?
From 4 to 500, and then we merged to a company that was 2,000 people strong.
Wow.
That was a mental graphics company, and in 1990. And that's at that point, we kind of got technology to be established. And that's when I, after a while, decided to leave Mentor and do another company, because I felt they were reaching a plateau. This goes back into these cycles of companies becoming at a certain level. And that was kind of the beginning of my next cycle of startups.
Wonderful. So I believe we have to take a short break at this time, and then we'll be back with Misha Burich, and we'll talk more about your career and about also about your daughter, who is the executive producer of CU USC. So we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back. We'll see you soon. Stay with us. And we're back with Misha Burich, high technology executive and father of Annalise Burich. So you had started this startup company. It grew from 4 people to merging to 4 people to 500, to merging with a company that had 2,000 people in it. How long were you with that company, and then what happened next?
Yeah, I stayed with them for 2 years, and after 2 years, I had some new ideas about new company I wanted to start. I felt my whole technology, my whole team was well taken care of, and I was ready for a new risk. And I did a small startup in a different type of software business, which I funded with another partner. It was very much kind of so-called edutainment software, which was a software that is used by young people to learn and train actually some of the theater, animation techniques. Really? It was interesting. We did it for a couple of years, and then we sold that technology to another larger company. So it was another success. After that, I joined a larger company this time called Cadence, in which I was a vice president of research and development for one of their business units. And that was from 95 to 2000, which was very nice environment in which I learned a lot, again, dealing with customers worldwide, now leading a much larger organization. And then finally, after that, I went to my last company, Altera, where I spent the last 13 years, where I was a chief technology officer, at some point leading teams of 1,100 people, 1,100 engineers, developing all the products for the company. So that kind of shows you there is a scale in high technology companies, from very small to very large, all very important.
So you were an engineer in charge of engineers and sort of encouraging their creativity and in charge of that. Can you tell us about some of the first of all, the requirements that are necessary to make a good leader, and secondly, just how you go about directing engineers to create and make stuff?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I think, like in anything else, the key thing is to have the right set of goals for your organizations, especially large organizations. You're dealing with thousands of engineers. You cannot see them all at all times. It's very important to have the right structure, hierarchy of teams. All of them have to understand what the goals are for their projects, and then also be able to work as a team. Teamwork is so essential. It's like rowing a boat. Everybody has to row in the same direction. Otherwise, you have anarchy. And so that was very important. Finally, innovation. Innovation was something that you had to encourage, because I remember my days in Bell Labs. My innovation was not appreciated, so I had to leave the company. In my last companies, I was encouraging innovation, and people appreciated the fact that whatever they invented actually can find a way to our products and our customers. Right. And we file a lot of patents every year because of protecting intellectual property and innovation of our engineers. And the last but not least is the customer relationship. I wanted all our engineers to be able to understand what our customers are doing with our products, so they can better understand how to develop a better product. It's very, very important to connect with the eventual user of your product. So those are principles that all organizations worked on, and then a plus to have a proper organizational structure, the hierarchy. Also working with other teams in a company. Besides engineering, you have marketing teams who are promoting the product. You have sales teams selling the product. You have HR, human resources who are worrying about the well-being of employees. All the parts of a company really have to work in harmony for a company to be successful.
Right. I think one big, broad question that's coming to mind right now is: was it fun?
Very much so. It is really, as I said, I'm so I feel blessed to be able to be part of that. But not only this, but also to see people that I grew from being individual contributors and becoming actual leaders themselves. It was really part of not only me being successful, but also making other people successful. Right. That's the most rewarding part of the whole thing, because right now, from my original companies, there are a number of different startups that were people that I managed who actually went to be successful. So that whole family tree continues, and as I said, that's why I'm bullish about the future of the high technology.
So I don't want to get too philosophical, but also you're mentioning success leads me to ask, what do you think success is? What does it look like? How do you achieve it, and what is it?
Yeah, well, success is really, about, having set of right expectations, having the right feedback from people that you're interacting with. Again, success boils down to having other people use what you do in some way. Whether you're a writer, they're reading your books. If you're an engineer, developing product, buying a product. So I'd be able to achieve all these things and then have a feedback from people who are benefiting from what you do. To me, that is kind of a very philosophical definition of success. And then also, feedback from your bosses, as well as employees and that sort of thing.
What are some of the ways in your life that you feel you've been successful and or unsuccessful?
A very good point. Sometimes if you're not successful, you fail, and failure is a very important part of actually making progress, understanding what went wrong, why you failed, and how to fix it. And it happens in every business. For example, sometimes we have developed the wrong product. The question, and the product failed in the marketplace, and so why is that? So what do we learn from that? How do we do something better next time? So failure is actually a big part of success. You know, it's not only unless you lose a game, you don't know what it means actually to win a better game next time.
Right. So you stayed at Altera for, am I pronouncing it correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You stayed there for 13 years. What was the experience of working there like, and why did you choose not to break away from that and make another startup company? Yeah,
that's an excellent question. I think I really liked the company. I liked the people. It was really, at the end of the day, you know, when you have a team of people you're working with, they become your friends. You're jointly participating in making a company successful. And then also the company was growing. I was very happy to be part of the growth of a company. And then it's almost like you always see the next stage. And if there is a next stage, you want to stay with the next stage.
Right.
And I actually stayed until, as I said, recently I retired, because I have reached a point in my career where retirement is the right thing to do, age-wise and everything else. But I'm staying in touch with the company, and I'm advising some of the people from there, and also some other startup companies. I'm a kind of advisor for new companies that are, having some new ideas.
So you've been retired for a year now?
A year,
okay.
Yes.
Let's talk about some of the things you've done during your retirement and some of the things you plan to do.
Yeah, so it was always that's probably one of the most interesting transitions for anybody's career, and all of you will be facing this decision one day, many years from now. For you, for 4 decades from now. It's a tough decision, but you have to get ready for it. So I was preparing for retirement for a couple of years. My management, my employees knew I was going to retire. So you can plan for succession. You can plan people who will take over once you move on. So the company doesn't really feel there is no glitch in running a company. When you retire, other people are taking over very smoothly. And then personally, I knew I was curious about many other things that I didn't have time to study and learn when I was working full time. And so in addition to my family life and travel with my family and just kind of taking it more easy, I am actually studying on my own, for my own pleasure, some new fields of science and technology that I didn't have time to do before. Bioengineering, genome informatics, all genetic, how genes work and everything else is very fascinating to me. As I said, I'm not planning to do any new companies that field, but I'm just personally enjoying learning new things, because there is so much new information being developed at all times, more than the history of mankind. We're creating more knowledge and also having access to it through internet. That's another interesting phenomenon that did not exist in the past.
So looking back over your incredible journey from Yugoslavia to Silicon Valley and all that happened in between, what are you most proud of?
I think that's a good question, and there are so many things I'm proud of, but I think I'm most proud of the fact I look back and I enjoy all the people that I work with. All the people that when I meet now, we are all friends, and all were participating in a journey, no matter what age people were this time. So they're just being part of that whole process, that whole technology explosion. I'm very, very proud of. Now, that is on a professional side. On a personal side, I'm very proud of my daughter and my wife, and so that's doesn't require mentioning, really.
I love it. And in honor of Parents Weekend, let's talk a little bit about Annalise. Annalise, who, for all our viewers, just so I'm sure you know, is the executive producer of CU at USC, and so she's here every single night making sure the show goes as planned and making sure everything runs smoothly. You must, of course, be so incredibly proud of your daughter. What are some of your favorite things about Annalise?
Oh yeah, I'm very proud, and she's a great young woman, and she's enjoying her studies at USC, and we're very pleased as her parents that she chose this school when she chose it, because it's a great school. I have great respect for her. And so I think, I always was proud of her desire to learn and build her own knowledge and be independent in understanding how things work. And she chose career different than me. She's not in engineering science. She's more into, she's studying narrative studies and art history here. But no matter what field you have, it's an important thing to be curious. Have curiosity about learning things, being able to connect the dots, and see the correlations of things and patterns. Be able to interact with people effectively is very, very important. Being able to communicate well. All of these things, as a proud parent, a proud father, I'm very pleased that I see those traits in her, which I felt was also important for my career.
Wonderful. So we have just a few seconds left, but in those few seconds, I wonder if you could give just an incredibly brief bit of advice to anybody who wants to do what you did, to go out to make it in Silicon Valley and to make it in these fields of engineering and all that.
Be curious. Curiosity is the key for innovation. Work with people well as a team. Be ambitious. Have long-term goals and then work very hard to reach those goals and then set new goals.
Wonderful. I've been speaking with Misha Burich, who is now retired but has had an incredible career starting in Yugoslavia, moving to Silicon Valley, working with thousands of people as an engineer, creating technology and all this stuff. Misha, it has been such an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you, Desi, very much.
We will be back again. CU at USC happens on Monday night as well, when Cole Sullivan will lead you through with another incredible guest. It's been an honor to have Misha on, and hopefully we will see you again on Monday night. Have a good night and a great weekend.